Hi, this is Marcia Woon Choy from ActionCOACH, and welcome to the second of our business tips on Tuesdays. So, I'm not sure how many of you tuned in last week, Thursday, but we had an amazing Candid conversation with Stephen Marston of CAC 2000 Limited and Jonathan Swire of Delta Supply Company Limited. It was very enlightening and we learned a lot. And so during this week, we'll be showcasing through some posts on social media some of the tips that they shared with us during that week. And on this week, Thursday, we'll be having yet another tip with someone from the financial sector this time. And that will be Mariam McIntosh Robinson. And she's the president and CEO of First Global Bank. We have so much to learn during this new normal. Yes, that's a thing. It's new normal. And we look forward to these conversations each week. So what will I be covering today? So we'll be covering two of the 9 must-dos for all businesses as we reopen amidst COVID. Now we have all been glued to the TV, watching what is happening as many of the larger economies reopen. And in some cases, it has not been good. So we have a lot to learn from what's happening because they have gone ahead of us. And as we're reopening, we need to make sure that we're not making any of those mistakes. So today, as I said, I'm going to look at some of the great tips that were prepared by our CEO of ActionCOACH Global, Brad Sugars. So let's get into that. So the first thing I want to share is our tip on we have to first of all understand that we have to re-educate and prepare ourselves for this reopening. We have started to reopen, and I've heard so many people saying, I wish I could go back to the way it was before. But the sad reality is there's no going back. Things have changed. There is only the new. And so what we have to do is to re-educate ourselves and our teams and prepare for this new norm. You know, the saying goes from Thomas A. Edison that unfortunately there seems to be far more opportunity out there than ability. We should remember that good fortune often happens when opportunity meets with preparation. What that means is don't just reopen without preparing. So we have got to start first of all with saying, listen, I need to educate myself on what are all the local rules of the game. Now, so many people have been sharing. The Prime Minister himself, the Ministry of Health, you have had PSOJ, Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, everybody has been sharing what are some of the best ways and the rules to reopen. So there are certain guidelines that we have to follow as a country, as a people, which are based on rules and regulations. So that's very important. One of the things that we also need to look at as we are reopening our business is also looking at what are some of the things that we are going to have to change. So as we said, re-educate and prepare. So one of the things we need to start doing is, as a business, taking into account the guidelines, think about how do we interact with the customer and with our team from we open the door. Even just reopening, just coming through the door has changed. You notice now everybody has somebody posted there with a thermometer, with hand sanitizer. We have to relook at everything down to how we enter the building is now different. And I want to also state that reopening is going to be a lot harder than when we were shutting down in many instances, because reopening has so many challenges. Another thing we have to make sure is that common sense has to prevail. We have to relook at the entire buying process. So how do customers interact with us? How do we serve them? If we're a restaurant, what does that look like? If we're a retail store, what does that look like? So we have to relook. You have to sit down. Listen, last week we spoke about mindset and taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility. That means we have to sit down, look at our business, and from start to finish, map out the process and look at what are all the areas of risk that I will have for my customer and for my team. That's our responsibility as leaders. So we have to really look at the entire buying process, walk through it as if it is new, because you're going to have to create it because things are actually now very different. So each step needs to be thought through again. It's almost as if we're doing it for the first time. The other thing that we need to be careful of is that, and I know this was important for me, I've told many people that I'm not going to certain places yet. And it took me a while, even when we were reopening, for me to step in through certain doors. And I had to find out first, what are you doing to ensure my safety when I come in? I scanned the website. I got so many emails saying, come on out, we're open. This is what we're doing. Now we need to be seen as cleaning and screening all the time. There must be evidence of this to make me feel comfortable that I'm going to want to come back out. Now, folks, I'm just going to be very honest with you, and I'm going to give you some examples of what I found. And this was in the early stages of opening, and each week I look at what's happening. What we have got to understand, it's not just about the risks that our customers face and our team. It's also, how will people perceive your business? And if they had some of the stories that I have had from going into certain businesses, people may not want to come back to do business with you because you post out there saying, this is what I'm doing, but you're actually not doing it when I get there. So for example, I walked into, and I'm not going to give the name of this company, I walked into one of the telecom stores, and there were the team members sitting together, huddled together. I was not screened. There was no hand sanitizer. I was not greeted. They just buzzed the buzzer and I walked through the door. And then they came to me, walked up to me. None of them were wearing masks. And she came right beside me and said, what is it that I'm shopping for and how can she help me? And I immediately said to her, where is your mask? And do you know what she said to me? Well, I don't have to wear a mask if you're wearing one. I immediately turned around and left the store. This is after we were assured in so many ads, in so many emails, that certain guidelines were put in place and that people were observing them. So it's very important that we understand that people are going to be observing us and we must be seen as sticking to the rules, as cleaning and screening our customers when they walk in. Because if I walk in and I do not feel comfortable that the people were screened before me, I'm not going to come back. I'm going to give you another example. I walked into, and I'm not going to name the name again, another very large establishment, retail, where people go in and they buy lots of stuff. Lots of ads are there out there saying, listen, we are going to be making sure that things are in place. We're going to be screening. We're going to be doing all these various things. Announcements are being made. And the first thing I did when I walked in, I saw the gentleman putting back his trolleys. And I said to him, a whole ton of trolleys being put back. And I said, are those trolleys cleaned? He looked at me. I don't know. I was just told to put back the trolleys. Then I turned and I said, but who is cleaning the trolleys? I now observed other customers walking up to those very same trolleys, and they started to pull out the trolley. And I said, stop. This gentleman just said to me, he does not know if they were cleaned, yet he's put them back. I walked inside the store and I said, who is responsible for the cleaning of the trolleys? I am very uncomfortable. I was about to place my hand on a trolley, and I've been told by this person that he's not responsible for that. He doesn't know. He was just told to put back the trolleys. The lady told me that somebody is supposed to be there cleaning the trolleys. She looked out, but she didn't see him. So I said, then what's happening? She doesn't know. The place is overrun. There are people moving up and down, and nothing is happening. In that very same store, I'm walking up and down. Announcements are being made about social distancing. And yet, I see people walking down the same aisle towards you, across from you. I then go to the cashier. There I am, a couple in front of me. Their mask is pulled down under their chin. They're having a conversation with the cashier who has said nothing to them about wearing the mask. No rules are being enforced. It got into a situation where there was something wrong with their card. They had to call a manager. The manager came, and what happened? Continued to have the conversation with the couple with the mask under their chin, and nothing was said. Now, folks, I've just given you some real life examples. Why? This is how you will be seen. And as we reopen, we have to make sure that we are seen to be cleaning and screening and enforcing and speaking to people about ensuring that they're following the guidelines, or they'll have to leave your store. We have to ensure that our people also have the PPE, personal protection equipment. People need to feel safe. Your customers need to feel safe. I need to feel safe. I've told people I'm not going back there. I'm not going back there because I was very, very disturbed. I felt absolutely unsafe, and I did not feel that we were protected by the leaders and managers of that store. So it's important, folks, that as we reopen, if you want to ensure that your reputation, that your customers will come back again as you reopen, then when they walk through those doors, they need to feel for certain that you have your cleaning protocol under control and your screening protocol under control. Now, you need to put things like, we've seen them, the tape measures and the stickers on the floor, but is anybody enforcing them? So it's important that we don't just have the procedures, but that we are also reviewing those. So people must see and feel that you're following the procedures, and we also need to be reviewing and checking and improving the processes, because right now, folks, especially with what has happened in the States, you're seeing it's what's happening in Europe. As they're in Australia, they're even locking back down, closing the borders between, some of the counties, states. We have got to recognize that we can't just reopen and say, okay, I'm so glad that we're open, so now we can get money flowing in the business again. No, because fear and worry is still around. And folks, COVID is still with us. It has not gone. So as business owners and as managers and leaders, we need to constantly be reviewing, checking, and improving our processes. Flexibility will be key, which means each week, each day, you assess. Supervisors should be walking around to ensure, because folks, this is long term. And the longer we have reopened, I have noticed that more and more people are getting relaxed and they're not following procedure. I even walked into a dealership where I serviced my car, and there I was. Everybody was told to wear a mask. I'm standing at my counter, and the person beside me is being checked in by an employee who has on no mask. And I had to call to the attention of a manager. When the manager came, he had on no mask. Now, folks, we can say all that we want about reopening and doing so safely and placing ads and saying all these wonderful things. But we have got to ensure, and coming back to leadership and coming back to ownership and coming back to accountability and responsibility, that you ensure, because if you allow anyone inside there who does have the virus and does cause your environment, therefore, to be compromised, you will have to shut your location, and that is going to mean lost sales. So I really would like to impress on you to re-educate your people, your team, your customers about what needs to happen, it's not the same anymore. The buying process is not the same. The serving of the customer is not the same. And you have to ensure that your people are prepared, and both the customers and your team are prepared for doing business when you reopen that door. It is not just about saying, thank God I can reopen. I see restaurants reopening. I was at the beach on Sunday and I saw people sitting at tables close to each other, not from the same household, and they're talking and laughing and shouting and coughing. Not even 1 feet separates them, not even 1 foot. So, folks, please, I encourage you during this time, open responsibly, educate, re-educate, keep looking at the procedures, make sure they get better, because I'm going to tell you, if people do not feel safe, they'll go to wherever they feel safe. That store I'm not returning to, and I'm going to go to another store that I was going to normally because I felt their procedures were a lot safer. These things matter. The other thing we need to be doing, so tip 2 is this. You're going to have to rebuild your team. So bringing great people onto your team is about demonstrating that size really doesn't matter. It's people do. So I want to say, team is putting themselves, your team, when they come back out to work, is putting themselves at risk. So I really want to talk about this because, I've even heard some companies say they're going to remain virtual for the remainder of this year for the protection of their team members. We're a business coaching firm and I have a training room and it's behind me, and I am not reopening yet for training in that room. We're still doing things virtually. And the reason is that I'm still not ready and do not feel comfortable yet to do any in-person training that could put my people at risk. So remember this, your team is putting themselves at risk by interacting with people. There are people, other team members, delivery people, customers, suppliers. So you need to give your people who are coming back to work the confidence to come back to work. Don't just say that we have to open the door and say, no, because I told you to go home. Now it's time to come back. You should be glad you have a job, so just come through the door. Absolutely not. We have to give our people the confidence to come back to work. They have to feel that if they come back into the environment, is my employer making sure that I am safe? Are the protocols in place for me to be safe? Sometimes some of us have rooms in which we have multiple persons working with absolutely no separation between them. How are we ensuring that our people are safe to come back to work? Are we making sure that we have all the cleaning implements, the personal protective equipment available for them as well? How are we keeping them safe? So remember I said we needed to look at the reopening, especially for the customers, the whole buying process, how customers interact with you. But I also want to say that we need to communicate with our team with respect to how much there is what the procedures are for cleaning of the environment. So in terms of giving them that confidence, they need to be clear on what the procedures are in place for cleaning of the environment. So there needs to be a rhythm, there needs to be a schedule. How often will it be cleaned? How many people can we have in a room at any one time? Use of the bathroom. In meeting rooms, how many people? What happens when people leave the space? How often should they? And if it's a small environment, then the team will need to know that whenever somebody leaves somewhere, you need to wipe, you need to clean, you need to spray. I have seen that falling off as well. I remember I went into a salon where the person was actually in the beginning doing lots of spraying. Oh, it was an absolute, everybody was aware, lots of spraying going on of all the chairs and of all the. And then as time passed, what I saw was not the spraying anymore. I just saw a little kind of splashing of some alcohol onto the chairs. And I'm going, wow, it went from spraying down the entire chair to just some, token splashing of the chair just to say, okay, I'm doing something. So, folks, you may hear me talking like this, but it's because I'm observing. And I'm observing the things that people are doing. And if people are relaxing the protocols, you're going to put not just your customers, but your people at risk. So make sure that we are clear and sharing with them how the cleaning is being done and what is being done on a daily basis, give them the confidence to come back to work. The other thing is allowing our team also to be virtual. So that's another one. You've heard me say that some companies have said they'd remain virtual, and it's because they recognized that based on the amount of people they have in a space, it would be difficult for them to bring back everybody. So you may have to say, all right, I'm going to allow the team to some of the team to be virtual. You may have flexible hours now, especially because school is not back yet out. So parents are still at home. How are they going to come back out to work? So we need to be flexible hours and give people where they can be virtual. Now, this is very important. Not all job functions are virtual or can be virtual. So it is important that we decide and determine what functions can remain virtual, and then those team members can remain virtual at home, and then others may have to return to work. We may have to look at shifts so that we don't have too many people in the location at one time. We also need to know with those shifts, what would that look like? How many? How often? Etc. The other thing that we're going to have to look at is rebuilding our community and communication with the team. Remember, the team has been virtual now for months. And as a result of that, the interaction that they would normally have by being in the same room together is gone. And that is sometimes, especially for Gen Zs, they like that feeling of belonging and people around them. So what's happening now is that as people remain virtual for a longer period, disengagement is coming into play, and they also don't feel the same sense of community. So we have to rebuild that community. What we were doing is a lot of virtual meetings and huddles, and we may need to continue that as well, especially when some teams are at home and some are at work. We need to also set the rules down again in terms of how many people can be in-person meetings, etc. So it's very important that we continue to work on the community and the communication, have the daily huddles, have the weekly meetings. I'm going to say something, however. You need to use discretion. If you find that some of these virtual huddles and all these meetings, sometimes I'm hearing people saying they're in constant meetings, and that is what's happening. I think sometimes we're going overboard in that when we were in physical proximity, we weren't meeting as often. Now that we're virtual, I think we've now gone overboard with the number of meetings. So we really need to use common sense here and really look at, do we need to have so many meetings? And be very clear as what each meeting is going to be about. The other thing as well is the standards and the protocols. So again, you heard me speaking about the fact that the people in your organization need to feel protected. If I am constantly worrying about, did this person come in, did they clean, what happened afterwards, or am I certain that the equipment that I'm using, was it cleaned? If people are going to be constantly worrying and feeling that they're not protected, they're going to be less productive. So it's important that we set the standards and observe them. What are the protocols for the team when they come in, and make sure that those standards are being observed? So you heard me talking about the various establishments that I went into. While we're talking about protecting the team and protecting the customers, remember, our team members have to be trained on how to protect themselves and to ensure that they're protecting the customers as well. So just as we had other standards for answering the phone, for customer service, you need to have standards and protocols now, and be vigilant, be out there, be observant. Is the team following the standards? Because if not, you're going to have to retrain, and you have to keep communicating the protocols over and over again to the team. As a manager, repetition is extremely important, especially in this new time. I'm going to say something to you. You know, before this, we used to think, okay, you're telling the team things over and over. I'm tired of telling them. This is what many people would say. But I'm going to say something to you. This time is a different time. This time, not doing the things, not following the standards and the protocols may mean somebody's life. It's a totally different ball game we're in now. So again, as leaders, ensure that our people have the standards documented, that you talk about them and the protocols. I'm spending a lot of time on this. And again, if you are here for the earlier part of the call, because I have been into too many establishments and seeing people dropping the standards and protocols, and nobody is holding them accountable. So remember, communicate, communicate, and communicate the protocols to the team. Understand that as people come back, everyone is new again. You know, it's almost as if everything is new again. We'll need to have retraining. So whoever came back, everybody's coming back, they're coming back into a whole new environment. So everything is new and everyone is new. So we need to have the retraining on how to execute things. Even having a locked door policy. You know, this is very important because sometimes we just allow people to walk into our establishments. We need now to be able to create that barrier so that you let people in and they follow the protocol first. You can't just walk in. So everything is new again. So I really want to go over these two tips again. First thing, the first tip was to re-educate and prepare. And I'm doing these two tips because I want us to do this responsibly. You know, there's this term which says good service sells, and people will tell many people. But you know, bad service, they'll tell more than they'll tell double the number of people about bad service. If you walk into an establishment and you feel that the protocols are putting you at risk, then people will go back and tell other people that, listen, don't go to that environment, don't go into that store, don't go to that business place, because they are not ensuring that they keep you safe. Remember, I said everything is new. So re-educate your customers, re-educate your team, and prepare them for the reopening. And the second tip we gave was to rebuild your team. It's not as before. When they come back in, everything is new. Processes, procedure, the way we communicate, the standards, how we work together, everything is different. And it does require now a greater level of supervision. So I'm going to ask everybody to make sure that we embrace these two tips that I just shared. Because this is a live stream, you can go back over the tips again and you can rewatch and make sure that you write them down. But it's extremely important during this period. So before I go on to play a video that I really want to play for you, I want to just remind you again that this Thursday we will be having Mariam Robinson, President and CEO of First Global Bank, as our guest for our Candid Conversations this Thursday, live streaming Facebook and YouTube on both the JCC site as well as Action Coaches at 1 p.m. Make sure that you are there for that. Now, what I want to do now is I want to share with you the video. And this video that I want to share is really about how to achieve your most ambitious goals. And how do we overcome the hurdles and the obstacles that we're going to face? And it's a follow-on to the one we did last week on mindset. And the reason why I'm doing this is this. This is not an easy time. We are facing many hurdles and many obstacles, and we will have to overcome many of them, which includes fear, procrastination, many other self-limiting beliefs. Some of us are saying, how am I going to make it through COVID? I went to Montego Bay. Some of you may have heard I went to Utrecht the other day to look at what was happening there. When I journeyed to Montego Bay as well, and it was really devastating to see what's happening. We want to reopen our economy. We want to make sure that we provide the employment for people and to make sure that we get back to a vibrant tourism industry. But folks, it is going to require that we all come together and put into place as leaders, as owners, the protocol that will keep not just our team, but our guests or visitors to the island safe. So I'm going to play this video for you now. Give me a few minutes to just cue it up, and let me share this video now.
Into these tasks that I could achieve.
Now, I wanted to share that with you because we are in difficult times, and many of us are facing extreme challenges with our business, with our sales, with overcoming ourselves, which is our self-limiting beliefs, things that are happening that are affecting us right now. And I want you to remember, go back and watch the mindset live stream that we did last week. It's important that we understand it's going to take that strong mindset and that determination to overcome the challenges, the fear, the self-limiting beliefs, the discouragement that we're feeling right now. But we have got to move forward in this environment. So I want to take a couple questions now, and I'm seeing here where Andrea, hey Andrea, how are you? So Andrea says, what will it take for persons to get that COVID is not gone and be responsible? Absolutely. You know, that's the question. And, you know, Andrea, I think unfortunately, what it is going to take is for people to see more people getting sick here in Jamaica. What has happened right now is that I think we're feeling, because we haven't had any more deaths than 10 deaths, and that even though the cases have been coming in, we're saying, well, you know, it's mostly from people coming into the island, but it seems to be contained. But what we don't recognize is that when we let down our guard, and I spoke of many different cases where I've seen that, when we let down our guard and more people start locally through community spread to get the virus, is when people will recognize that it is not gone. And what has happened is that it is not for lack of the messaging, because the messages are out there. We see it on TV. We see it happening abroad that COVID is not gone. But there seems to be this feeling locally, and I've seen it, that, listen, it's not here. It's only on TV. And I think until more people get sick and we know more people who have gotten the virus, as I heard today from someone who knew another whole family that had gotten it. And I think until that happens and their business is locked down and that communities start to feel the pressure, is when people will start to take it serious, Andrea. Unfortunately, many people learn more from experience than anything else. All right, so if there are no more questions, I am going to, no more comments, I'm not seeing any more. I'm going to say, folks, please, please, I did this, when I did these tips, I made sure to share these examples because I am seeing it happening. I'm seeing it happening. And it is creating a sense of discomfort, both in me, and I know there are other people who are going to feel that way, because we are not making sure that we're keeping our customers and our team members safe if we as leaders and managers do not inspect what we expect. So it's not enough to just put up the signs. In your establishments, make sure that you are observing the protocol. More importantly, to keep your team safe. Yes, the customers important, but at the same time, you have an obligation as well to the team that you employ for their safety and protection. So folks, I look forward to sharing with you again next week, Tuesday, on 2 more of the tips from the 9 tips. And please tune in on Thursday. I mean, these candid conversations have been really great with Ian Nita from the Chamber and Arlene Martin from ActionCOACH, and our clients and the Chamber clients, members. And I think it's just really important that we have the conversation going. This is the new now. There's no precedence for this. This is the new now, and we all have to walk this road together, but let's walk together in collaboration. Let's walk together responsibly, and let's help to rebuild our nation and our economy and make Jamaica the abundant country, Jamaica abundance, which is what we all want to leave for ourselves and for our children and for their future. So see you soon. Thank you very much.